Alright, well today the 2000 Frontier is in the garage because it needs some work. This is my little beater with a heater and we got it running and everything, but it is leaking like a sieve on most everything that can leak out of this motor. So we're going to get set up today and we're going to do a bunch of refresh on this motor. So step one here, as we get going, we're going to replace the water pump because it's leaking on the seal, as well as the timing belt. And while I'm up front, since it's kind of like do things while you're doing things, we're going to go ahead and replace the front main seal and the cam seals as well. So we'll get this front all fixed up, then we'll make some more videos working our way to the back. We got to pull the transmission, do the rear main, do the oil pan gasket, and do all that. So let's get set up. We want to get this guy out of here as quick as we can, so we're not spending much time talking. We're just going to go ahead and get this thing fixed. So I'll get the camera put down and we'll start taking some stuff off. Alright, so to get started, we got to get all this stuff out of my way here. So I got to get the water bottle off, so I'm just going to go ahead and take the battery out. Now I got the negative off already when I brought it in, and I have taken the coolant loose to drain all that out last night. So the top pipe's off and the bottom pipe right down here is off. Those will have to come off, but we're going to go ahead and get stuff out of the way. So I'm just going to get the battery out of here so I can get that bottle off. So now we got some access, but we got to get started down here because we got to take the fan off. So there's 4 little 10mm down there. I'll show you how to do those real quick. Kind of easy by loosening the tensioner down here. So let's move the camera down just a little bit. Alright, so armed with a 14mm and a 10mm, what we want to do is get down inside of here, and hopefully you can see, but it's really tight. And so you want to loosen these guys up. There's 4 of them. And there's the second one. So the easiest thing to do, because those are hard to get to in the first place, but you got to get to the bottom 2. So what I want to do is rotate this thing. So what we got to do is break the pulley, the tensioner pulley bolt free right down here. Yeah, we got him broke free. Now what we want to do is actually up here where the tensioner comes in for that pulley, take another 14mm, and we want to loosen that belt. That's going to loosen that tensioner up and allow us to spin those other 2 up there so we can get them little jokers out. Right there. So now they're up top. So we just take our wrench and we tighten the tensioner back up. It'll hold it steady so we can get those other 2 out. Alright, so with the 4 bolts out, now our fan is free. So to get the shroud off, because we got to make some room to get our hands down there, we're going to take all this front off, and the fan's loose now. So we just got to take a bunch of this stuff off. Alright, so we're ready. We got everything loose on the shroud, but it's still going to run into stuff. Now a fan can come out with the shroud, but this pipe right here is kind of in the way. We got to get it out of the way. And these little brackets that hold the radiator tend to be in the way too. So let me get this pipe broke free right here, and then we can flex it back a little bit. Alright, so now we've got a little bit of wiggle room. So let's see if we can pick the shroud up and see if he'll slide up like that. Right there. So now we got a whole lot of room in here. We can start getting stuff, but we still got this radiator in the way that we can get out of here pretty easy. Now this vehicle is a manual, so it doesn't have the cooler lines to the transmission, so there's really nothing holding this radiator in here right now. If you had an automatic, you would have some lines down here in the bottom, but this one doesn't have it, so the radiator just comes out at this point. So now all we do is just pick up on a radiator. It should be sitting in some little bumps. down in the bottom. And out comes the radiator. So once you can get these little guys loose right here on that fan, it's really easy. So it didn't take any time at all to go ahead and clear all this out. And next up, we gotta get the belts off. So let's mark them first. So this is the outside belt, that's the AC. And so we're just gonna mark on here AC. And then we're gonna put an O for out, because that's the outer belt. And then while we're at it, this one is the power steering. So there we go. So we got our belts all marked. And now we can start loosening some things up. So let's grab another 14 millimeter. And so we want to get our outside belt off. So you break that guy free right there. We just want to loosen it up. Then up here on top, we get the tensioner. Loosen the tensioner up. Now we got to get this one off. Well, it's already loose because we loosened that one up. So we can just pop it off. You can just slide the pulley off right there and get that belt off. And then we'll put the pulley back on the water pump. And then the last belt to come off is the alternator belt, but you can get to the bolt pretty easy. And off comes the final belt. So with the belts all gone, now we can start getting some of these covers out of the way, these little brackets and this pipe right here. So let's go ahead and get that pipe loose. It's got a clamp right here. And since we already got that bolt off to slip the shroud out, now we just gotta wiggle this guy out of there. And there we go. Let's get set up in here and start pulling some of these brackets. Alright, it's time to get this upper bracket off. Now it's held on with 12 millimeters as well. And off comes that upper bracket with its pulley that holds the power steering pump. So he's next. Just gotta find the bolts. And that whole bracket slides out. So that's the idler for the power steering. And you can see, this is one of them deals that while you're there kind of deal. That's why we're gonna do this front main, we're gonna do the cam seals, and we're gonna do this timing chain while we're doing this water pump. Because all this stuff has to come off to get to it. So now, we just gotta move a little bit of this harness up out of the way to make some room to be able to get to the bolts for the covers. Then we can take the cover off. Alright, so next up we gotta get all this stuff out of our way because we got some bolts back here. So I'm just gonna get this harness up and get it. So then while we're at it, let's go ahead and take these pipes off because they're a bit annoying. Yeah, that's out of the way. So now we can get this little crossover tube off here. Now we're making progress. So all we got is these bolts up here, and we can pop this upper cover off. We'll get him off there. We'll go ahead and take the pulley off. Now with all that out of the way, we can get to all these bolts. So we just gotta break these guys free. And there we go. There's our timing cover off. Now we can see our very loose and probably needs changing timing belt. Alright, so now with all of that off there, we're in good shape, and I gotta go get me a thermostat so I can change this while I'm at it. That's just 12 millimeters. 312 millimeters right there. We'll pop that off because we'll do that while we're at all of this. But in order to do the front main, now I'm going to have to take this pulley set off here. So now I got to get this big old Jesus bolt off. So I'll show how to do that because a lot of people in the videos, they don't show how to take that off. So we'll get set up and we'll get that all ready, and then I'll show you how to get that thing off there because sometimes they're a nightmare and sometimes they'll come off. Alright, so we're working our way on down, and I got the timing marks all set up. The timing's actually off on this vehicle right here. Somebody has replaced this belt and they got it off a tooth. But we'll deal with that in a little bit. Right now, what we got to do is get this Jesus bolt off of this crank right here, or the pulley bolt right there. They call it a Jesus bolt because you're either going to have Jesus help you get it off, or you're going to be saying Jesus the whole time you're trying to take this off because you ain't going to be successful. But let me show you how to be successful in getting your crank bolt off or your Jesus bolt off. And I'm going to tell you, I have broke a whole lot of breaker bars trying to get these things off, especially the BMWs. But let me show you how it's done, and hopefully we won't break another one when we're doing this little job right here. Alright, so we got to have a little bit of stuff, and you need to get one of these 2-inch cheap straps. You can pick them up. You're just going to need a little short piece of the strap. You don't need a big old long thing because you can't deal with it. And a pair of pliers, and we're going to need a piece of the old belt, like this is the alternator belt. So what I want to do is I want to put this alternator belt on top of my pulley because it's going to help get a little bit of grip to get this bolt off. So let me put the tape on one side, and then we're going to put this guy right here on the back pulley. Most people in the videos, they don't show you this step. They always skip over this because they try and end up doing all kinds of crazy things, and they don't want to show it on video. But let me just show you what you got to do because I know how to get the Jesus bolt off. So here's what we got to do. So you get your strap, and what you want to do is take your strap and your pliers and put that strap around the pulley toward the back right there, and then take your pliers and you just want to hold it. And what that's going to do is keep that little dude from moving when you're cinching. Now I'm pulling the bolt this way, so I got to be on the bottom of the pulley with the strap. So we're just going to take this strap and we're going to put it on top of our rubber belt like that. Then what we got to do is find something to pull against. So I'm going to pull against the frame. So let me get this underneath the frame right there, and then I'm just going to hook it to something. So I'm going to hook it in that hole right there. So there we go. So we got our strap done. Now some people say to do them in gear, put the brakes on. If it's an automatic, put it in park, but I'm going to tell you, these things are on there. It says about 100 foot-pounds of torque, but I guarantee you it's probably 250 to get this thing off here. And you're going to see, I'll put the camera back a little bit. You'll see me breaking this thing free with a 4-foot cheater bar on my breaker bar. So it's in neutral and all of that. So we're not relying on the motor, the transmission, anything to try to get this torque off because you might damage something. So let me get a wrench and we'll tighten this strap down, and you'll see that that strap's going to hold it when I break it loose. Alright, so what we want to do is get a wrench on it. This is not the wrench I'm going to use for the braking. All I want to do is tighten this thing up and get that belt tightened up on to my little rubber belt right there. So I got it locked down. Alright, so now we got our breaker bar, and what I got to do is find a position because I'm going to pull this way. Oh, and by the way, make sure, unless you want to dent your fender in case this thing slips, get you something up on top of here. That way when that bar drops, it's not going to dent your fender up. But that's too far away. I actually got to get this thing up like here somewhere to get this broke free, so I got to move my socket and find the right position. It's going to allow me to get up. So there we go. So now we're upward, and you can see it's going to get a good grip on it. Now I just got to get a 4-foot cheater and put it on the end of that breaker bar. So let me back the camera up, and you'll see me break this thing free. Alright, so with cheater bar in hand, and I'm going to tell you, these are hard to get off there. That's why they call them Jesus bolts. Make sure that thing is snugly on there, and put your cheater bar on there. And then what we got to do is pull the best we can pull, but you'll see that strap is going to hold it. And so it's going to let it spin a little bit. You might have to move it. And if you can see in that camera, that bar is bending. Whoop, there we go. So with that on it right there, it's about that easy to break those jokers free. Now that wasn't on there super tight. It didn't bend my bar too bad. But that's the way that you hold that in place, is just use a 2-inch strap, strap it down to something and just strap around the pulley, put your little piece of belt in there, and you can break that joker free. And so now, it is broke free, and it wasn't that hard to do. So as simple as that, that's how you get them Jesus bolts off there. So now I can switch back to my regular wrench, and I can take that guy out of there. There you go. So it's not too bad once you figure out how to do it, but the strap works really, really good. Now the other thing we got to do, I'm just going to put that back in there because hopefully this is going to slide off. But while I got the strap on there, because I'm changing out my cams, the seals on those, I'm going to go ahead and break these free while I got the belt holding it and while I got my strap holding it. So we'll get those broke free as well. That way we don't have any problem fighting the cams and worrying about timing and stuff like that. We can just take the bolts loose, pop them off, get the seals, put it back on. So let's get those broke free. They're a little bit difficult, but not near as bad as that Jesus bolt. Oh, and just by the way, make sure you're using 6-point sockets for these things. You use a 12-point, you're gonna tear your bolt up. So we gotta get a 6-point socket over here, and we're gonna break these cams loose. There we go. So you see how nice all that is just by using that strap strapped around the frame. All right, so we're in good shape. Then now we can take our straps loose, and when I go to put it back on, I'm going to do the very same thing. I'm just going to strap over the top, and then when I'm tightening, it's going to tighten the strap up on the top side, whereas right now I'm strapping to the bottom side. So let's get our strap off there. Now we can see about getting this pulley off. We can take our lower cover off and work our way on down. All right, so let's get it back on top dead center before we start pulling this off, because I got to make sure the timing's right when I put all this stuff on there. So we'll just grab it and we'll crank it back around because it didn't move much. Somewhere right around that first dot right there, that should be 0. It's either -5 or 0. Then it's 0, 5, 10, 15. But it should be 0 right there. All right, so back on top dead center. These guys are loose, so we can get our cams off. The big bolt's loose. Now we got to pull this flywheel off. So sometimes these are fun too, to get these off. Now one thing you'll notice on your big old bolt, right in the middle of the big old bolt, there's a recess right there. Well, you need to be pulling against this bolt when you got your pulley puller on there. So you want to loosen it up. Get it threaded though, so it doesn't mess up your thread bolts, but leave it loose in there. So let's get our pulley puller. Now this is a generic pulley puller right here. And so we're gonna try that one. If it won't work, I'm gonna have to come in here and grind these out a little bit so I can get a little better grip. But I'm hoping it's gonna slide off there pretty easy. So let me get this guy set up on there. Then we'll be back once we try to pull it. So with our cheap pulley puller mounted up here, and you're just grabbing this edge. Now theoretically, it'll stay on there and you won't have to pull that hard. You risk breaking this, so if you're really torquing down on it, you want to stop and get a better pulley puller, get something that'll get it back here on this lip, but a lot of times they'll come off with just that front lip and not break it. So all we got to do is just watch in between here and here and kind of see, is this thing moving or is this thing fixing to break? So what I'm going to do is put a screwdriver between the pulley and that little dial right there, and if the pulley's moving out, the screwdriver is going to tilt in. And we're in good shape. Now, you're not going to be able to get it all the way off because the bolt's still in there. So what you got to do is pull out a little bit and then take this off and then back the bolt out a little bit and then pull a little more. But right now, that big old washer, you can hear it, the big old washer's loose. And then finally, once you got it moving a pretty good ways, go ahead and take the big old washer off of the bolt, because the head should slip inside of the hole. And so then all I did was just add a little 1/4 inch socket right here, and then we got more room to thread this guy out. So we just got to keep threading, and eventually it's going to pop off there. And there you go. And as you can see, the bolt slides right through there. So you ain't got to worry about the bolt. Once you take that big washer off of it, the bolt will slide right through the big old hole. All right, so now we can get this lower cover off and get all of that out, because couldn't take that off and let's pull that pulley off. And off comes our lower cover. So now we can see our timing belt and our idler and all that stuff that's got to get replaced. So let's get set up down here and check this timing, because I got the marks up here correct. Now I got to see, is it correct down here on the little dot that's down here on this gear. Alright, so getting ready to take the timing belt off so we can get that out of the way, so we can take the water pump off, and I'm also going to do the seals, and I'm going to do the crank seal down there. So all this stuff's going to get done. Oh, and thermostat as well. But let me show you, this timing is off on this thing. When I got this truck, it wasn't running, and so I got it fired up, but it didn't run really good. But if you look right there on the belt is the line that's supposed to line up with the dot that's on the crank, the white dot right there. And then right back there is kind of a alignment mark, the white dot. So all that stuff's supposed to line up. Well, that's good on that cam. And the problem we got is if we go over to this cam, you can see that there's the line and there's the dot. So the belt is correct. It's got the line on the belt and all of that, but we're off a tooth. You can see that one is indexed to the right, a tooth. Now, let me go down to the bottom, because we'll check and make sure now that we have everything off down here. We can see the bottom gear and the little dot on it, and it should line up to the white on the belt. So let me get down there, and then we'll look up above and kind of see. So if we look up from the bottom of the motor, we can see on the gear there's a little mark. And so right, I got my finger there, right there is a little dot on the gear. Well, that lines up, you probably can't see it in there, but that lines up to, there you can see it, the little white stripe that's on the belt right there. So all that lines up down here correctly, so that cam on the left side up there is off a tooth. So we're going to put it back in its correct position when we take the belt off, and then we'll be ready to reinstall this belt. So let's hop back up to the top and get this belt off here. Alright, so to get the belt off, it's pretty easy. All you gotta do is loosen this bolt right here. So it's like a 14 millimeter maybe. And so right here, we gotta loosen this guy up. This is the tensioner as well as the item. So we'll get him broke through. And right on the inside there is a little Allen key. And so then you can rotate it. You can see it tightens up and it loosens. So we're going to loosen it up right there, get it loose. And what I want to do is up here on top, may not be able to see for the shadows, but what I got to do is get this belt off here, walk it off a little bit, and I'm going to get the timing set right. And then if we did everything right, what you see is this one's lined up here. This one is now lined up correctly there. And then if I go down to the bottom, I'm gonna look real quick, and it should be lined up on that little marker right there. So give me just a second, I'll go back down there, then we'll pull it off. But that'll be our setup. That's properly timed for this motor. Then you just make sure that there's 40 teeth between this dot and this dot. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 37, 38, 39, 40. So we're set just like what we ought to be. So now we can move on, and like I say, just a quick easy there on timing issues. So with this guy loose right here, all we got to do is pull this belt off, just like we did a second ago, and everything's going to stay still. We don't have any worries about that because we're on top dead center. And then we got our belt on. Now notice the belt, it's got little arrows for front, tells you which way the belt goes. Then it's got the little dots to tell you how it lines up. Alright, so time to get the water pump off. I'll just go ahead and do it, because if you were doing the timing belt and the water pump, this is where you would be working. So you get all these done. I'm going to do these seals while I got this off, so we'll work on that as soon as we get the water pump off. But it's only like 6 of the 12 millimeters right here. And with all the bolts out, then you just give them a wiggle. And you'll see a bunch of more coolant come out. You better have your pan down there. And out comes your old water pump. So now we got the timing belt and the water pump off. Reassembly would be in the same reverse order. You just put your new pump on with your new seal, and there should be a seal back here. Maybe why this one was leaking, because the seal is shot. It may just be where it's all leaking out there. Somebody didn't put a good seal on it. Well, we got to get all that cleaned up, get all the seal off of it. Then we'll be ready to reinstall the new one. You would put your timing belt back on and line it all up, make sure your marks are good, and then put it all back together. But we got to continue on because we're going to do some seals. So stay tuned when we start taking all this stuff off to get our seals done.